Good Friday afternoon. I'm Jerry Miller. Welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's good to be with you. Feeling alive today, guys. Thank you for joining us. It's gorgeous outside there in Charlottesville in Central Virginia. We're live in the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. This show is dynamic. You can offer your thoughts and your perspective. You can actually change the course of the show and the topic matter by putting your comments in the comments section. I will relay perspective on air. Give it a like and a share on any of these 12 Facebook pages, guys. We have a hot show. We'll catch sound from Chief Brackney's impromptu Twitter, Facebook press conference yesterday. We have the entire sound to replay for you. Four protesters arrested on Sunday. That story for you. Corona cases spiking, and you're following it. I'm following it. Texas bars are shut down at 12 p.m. today. Florida has now disallowed on-site alcohol sales. The market, Wall Street, responding 3.5% down, depending on the index that you follow or you're invested in. Main Street responding. Jobs not coming back as quickly as we thought they would. So a lot of stuff to cover. We'll apply it to a Charlottesville and Central Virginia standpoint. We'll take the macro news and we'll reflect on the macro news from a micro-localized standpoint here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. It's good to be with you. Day before the weekend means a lot on the docket. We're an advertising agency. We have 112 clients on our roster. We love working with them. Two of our favorites are Interstate Pest and Service Companies and Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Interstate is a four-generation family business, started in 1969, just a phenomenal family company. Phenomenal family company. And now's a great time to get some work done on your home. And Scott Wagner, through physical therapy, chiropractic care, and sports medicine, Dr. Wagner, changing people's lives. First story, and let's give some props to Judah Wickhauer, the director of the program. Judah, thank you for keeping us and righting the ship. The first story has got to be what we've been covering very closely. We started the week on Monday, and we emphasized that the protests that have been happening in Charlottesville for 4 straight weekends, if it happens again this weekend, that will be 5 straight weekends of protests. We've emphasized throughout the month of June, and we've said that the protesters have been peaceful, influential, impactful, and strategic until Sunday. And on Sunday, the news cycle started changing. The news cycle and the sentiment toward protesters started changing as they were heckling and harassing, paying citizens of private businesses on the downtown mall, as it culminated with graffiti and a very vocal presentation from the Charlottesville Police Department on Sunday. Chief Brackney, and we'll get to that. Let's get to the headlines first from the Daily Progress. She straight up says 4 people are going to get popped. 4 people are going to put in bracelets. 4 people are going to be put in steel. 4 people are going to get arrested. They're going to be charged. They're going to get fined. And the really incriminating thing about a protest in 2020 is every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a smartphone that is doing live streaming. So it's very incriminating illegal acts with all the cameras that are around. There's always somebody watching with these damn things everywhere. A couple things I want to break down first. First, let's go positive. First, let's give props to the protesters for, up until Sunday, really having an impactful and peaceful and strategic mindset with how they went about vocalizing their thoughts and beliefs in Charlottesville. Impressed. Sunday, too far. Can't scream at private citizens, at paying businesses, at private companies, and restaurants and patios in the mall. Can't do that. You can't write racist, enter here in graffiti in front of the Charlottesville Police Department. Can't do that. Can't spray paint public property. Can't do that. Shouldn't do that when the TV news has you on camera. I mean, cut to the chase. That ain't smart. TV news has a camera where you're spray painting racist enter here and catches you on camera. Come on. Now let's get to the police chief. The police chief, did you catch the audio? Tell your friends. Tag a friend now. If you've missed this story, tag somebody in the news feed or let somebody know to open up their ears, because we're going to play the entire sound from Chief Brackney. She spared no expense. She went after it. She said, lack of better phrase, she's like, this is my town, and we're going to get some law and order in here. We'll see what happens. You got the sound ready to go, Judah? All right, the sound's good for Chief Brackney? All right, let's hear Chief Brackney, guys. Tag your friends. Listen to this. If you missed this yesterday, watch and listen. Police Chief Brackney just celebrated her 2-year anniversary on the job in Charlottesville. Judah, let's play that in 3, 2, and 1.
Good afternoon. In response to nationwide, regional, and local rallies and marches, the Charlottesville Police Department has been publicly supportive in understanding of the pain and outrage being felt across the nation. So many unarmed black men and women at the hands of police. We've acknowledged and helped and held up on the efforts of our community leaders as a national model. However, these actions have been overshadowed and undermined by the criminal actions of a few. This past Sunday, a large gathering assembled at the Freedom of Speech Wall and then proceeded to march on the downtown mall and towards Market Street. While most of the event remained peaceful, several individuals chose to engage in unacceptable and criminal behavior. This included harassing and attempting to shame individuals who were trying to enjoy a Father's Day meal on the mall with their families. The group then blocked off Market Street in front of the Charlottesville Police Department for more than an hour, vandalizing the streets and the sidewalks with cruel, threatening, and hate-filled language at the entrance of the courts and the police stations, where, unfortunately, every officer, civilian employee, maintenance, and janitorial team members who came into the building had to endure. In response, on Monday morning, Charlottesville Public Works teams were mobilized to quickly remove the vandalism by power washing, sealing, and repainting the streets. Unfortunately, this is a temporary fix, as Public Works will also have to repave that section of Market Street, costing taxpayers upwards of $20,000. As a result of these criminal actions, the Charlottesville Police Department, with support of the Charlottesville Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, launched a full-scale investigation into identifying those individuals who chose to engage in criminal behavior. 4 individuals have been charged with vandalism in violation of Virginia State Code 18.2-137. It's a Class 1 misdemeanor. Class 1 misdemeanors are punishable by up to a year in jail and a $2,500 fine. However, we are not finished. The Charlottesville Police Department is in the process of identifying other individuals, and the incident remains under investigation. As public safety professionals, we acknowledge the necessity of spontaneous reactions to the newsworthy events affecting our nation and have consistently provided safe venues to allow our community to peacefully express their pain, grief, and outrage. More specifically, this department has worked tirelessly over the past few months to keep this community healthy. COVID-19 pandemic, other public safety issues, and the costly demonstrations that have unfolded the last month, our officers have come into work with the goals of keeping this community safe and our commitment to deliver service beyond the call. We will continue to prioritize the public's health and safety, but criminal actions that deface public spaces or put the public at risk and their safety at risk cannot be tolerated. Charlottesville, locally and nationally, politicians, power structures, and law enforcement agencies have heard your cries for authentic reform, but reform cannot occur if we do not work together as a community to create the co-production of public safety that we all long for. During this time, we ask every member in this community to engage in civil discourse without causing unnecessary pain and allowing detractors to co-opt the message and the manner by which reform can and will be achieved. Thank you.
So that's our police chief yesterday after our show yesterday. Okay. That was roughly, 1:45, 2 o'clock yesterday? A no-nonsense approach. A no-nonsense approach to this from the police chief. So dot the I's and cross the T's. Will we see another protest this weekend? Probably. That'll be 5 straight. Dot the I's and cross the T's. The police chief very clearly has offered the CPD's stance. We heard yesterday from activists in the community that are the old guard that have been doing it for a long time that did not applaud the actions of Sunday's protests. And it's interesting because the conversation is changing. So we'll see what happens this weekend. We'll cover it here certainly on the I Love CVille Show. We got some sizzle reels to get to before we welcome Jesse to the program. We're going to hear from Cindy Shorberg at Keswick Vineyards and Anwar Allen of Allen's Shortbread, Scottish Shortbreads. He joined us on the show yesterday. Before we get to those sizzle reels, a couple of other stories I want to relay to you. Look, COVID cases are spiking. We know they're spiking. I'm going to give you a couple of headlines from a macro standpoint, and then I'll reel it into Charlottesville and Central Virginia. First, the Texas headline, Judah. Let's get that on screen. The governor of Texas moments ago said bars must close at 12 p.m. Texas time for an indefinite period of time. So moments ago, the governor of Texas said the bars in Texas must close for an indefinite period of time. Let's go to the Florida headline. Moments ago, Florida has announced that no alcohol sales from an on-premise standpoint will happen for an extended period of time. Both of them are getting hit hard. So let's localize it here. How we're going to localize it here as we head into phase 3 next week with the governor. He's got another press conference today at 2. How we head into phase 3 has got to be even more cautious. Even more cautious. There's undoubtedly a correlation that we're seeing Texas, Florida, and some of these other states tied to close proximity, millennials, alcohol consumption. Multiple outlets are reporting that. So cautious as we head into phase 3 next week. We'll watch what the governor has to say at 2 o'clock. A story we've been following closely is how urban environments will impact suburban environments. I saw it in my neighborhood last week with an all-cash buyer from outside Philadelphia coming to our hood, seeing a virtual tour online, and buying a home. This is a guy in Philadelphia, a family in Philadelphia, wanted to get out of Philly, wanted to move to Albemarle County. Father went to UVA, was able to work remotely. Literally, all cash purchase in our neighborhood. This is not a starter home. Had not even toured the property or stepped foot in the house. Literally. Let's get the headline on screen from NBC News. This is happening everywhere. This is happening everywhere. A couple of weeks ago, we reported on this program how New York City, they're tracking zip codes in New York City and how we're seeing a flood or an exodus of people transferring or redirecting their mail from the city to suburban environments. Over 100,000 people they've tracked have already done that. Now you see headlines from NBC News as families are fleeing city environments and coming to suburban environments. Can you imagine if you're on Park Avenue or the Upper East Side in the Big Apple, can you imagine walking into your doorman building on a 30-floor building with your son or daughter and you have to wait for a bank of elevators to get up to the 12th floor? You have to touch the door to open that turnstile door to get into the lobby. You have to stand next to 4 or 5 other people in a very confined elevator as you ride a cart up to your apartment in the Upper East Side. Can you imagine riding the subway or taking public transportation in the city? People are freaking out. And as the cases spike, as we head potentially into a second wave or not, or just a second peak in the first wave, who knows? The flood from urban environments will continue. If you're on the fence of listing your house, this is a great time to put your home on the market because you have significant buyer interest from outside Central Virginia. But what does this mean for you, the Charlottesvillian? What does this mean for you, the Nelson Countyan? What does this mean for you, the Albemarle Countyan, the Fluvanna Countyan? What does this mean for you, your Louisa County Lions out there? Well, the cost of living in Central Virginia, I hate to say this, the cost of living is undoubtedly going to get higher. Our local municipalities, City of Charlottesville, $8 to $10 million shortfall. Albemarle County's got a larger shortfall than that. They will raise your real estate taxes to make up for budget shortfalls in 2021 and beyond. Your real estate taxes will go up. I promise you. The cost of living is going to go higher if you get urban families with higher earning potential. Northern Virginia has higher earning potential. Philly, Boston, New York City, higher earning potential. You take the earning potential, you work remotely from this in fiber and a Wi-Fi connection, and you can work like you're sitting in New York City, but you're in Albemarle County on the east side of the county. Follow it. Follow it. Follow it. It's going to impact this community without question. I want to go to a positive story about a wedding that's on the horizon in July. It's going to be the first wedding Keswick Vineyards and the Schoenberg family have done in 2020. And on yesterday's edition of the Virginia Wedding and Event Showcase with the fairy godmother, Barbara Lundgren, the show airs Thursdays at 10:15 on the I Love CVille Network. We had Cindy Schoenberg, the owner of Keswick Vineyards, on the show. And we said, you got a wedding coming up in July. What's the mood? What's the temperature? What's the feel? What's the vibe? How's it living out there in Keswick with the wedding on the horizon in July? Judah, let's get that sound ready to go. Cindy Schwarberg on a wedding right around the corner at Keswick Vineyards. Listen, and listen closely. 3, 2, and 1.
And we know that you stay in close contact with your couples, and you're going to be on top of the weddings coming up. And there are some coming up pretty soon, and now that we are in phase 3.
Yep. So July, finally, well, it's been tough as everyone's been canceling and moving weddings. So we still, have a few diehards that were, holding out hope that we would advance in these stages so they could have more guests come. So our first wedding this year will actually be in July now. So we're gearing up for it. Our tent is up. We're, getting everything in place to open the business on this side. So we got everything going really good on the other side of the business. I think we've fixed any hiccups there ever was, if there was any. And now for the weddings, very confident of what we're doing. That first wedding will be, opening day. That's where you're going to see things and be like, well, need to do this or didn't need to do that. And you'll learn from it. But I think it will be just like our tasting room. When we first opened it, people were so excited just to be able to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, the couples are going to be just thrilled that they're finally getting their wedding day. It's obviously not the wedding they dreamed of. We're all dealing with issues. Nothing is working this year like anyone dreamed of. But we're all making the best of it. And I think that's where, and I think their guests, everyone I've dealt with has been just so appreciative. They don't mind wearing the mask. They respect our rules. As soon as someone comes here, I make them put sanitizer on. That's like the first thing. It's like, wash it. You got to get your hands washed before you're coming in to my property and touching anything. And they just respect that. So, I think if you communicate it, they see it. No one wants to get this virus. So I think they respect and appreciate the safety steps you're doing.
I want to commend the Schwarbergs and Keswick Vineyards. We've been there, my wife and our 2-year-old son. In the last few weeks, they are so mindful of the health and safety. And they have such a phenomenal piece of land and such phenomenal outdoor space that you can go there. You can get away from all the stuff that's on the news, all the stuff that's clouding our minds. And you can go to Keswick, you can get a bottle of white or a bottle of red, Stevens Phenomenal Wine. You can get a blanket. You can watch your 2-year-old kick the little soccer ball around while your better half and yourself are on a blanket enjoying some wine in a 75-degree day. It's perfect. And I'm going to throw this out there again. and I've been emphasizing this for a while, the value proposition for Albemarle County, Fluvanna County, Orange County, the value proposition for wineries and breweries in the counties right on the outside of the urban ring has never been stronger from my standpoint than right now. People want space when they're enjoying their beer or their wine. They want to sit on a blanket. They, without question, want to be outside. And the businesses that can cater to the pent-up demand that is certainly in the marketplace are the ones that have the vast properties. And those are the ones that you see in the counties. So as the city, guys, can you imagine 3 Charlottesville city councilors were elected into office this past November? Michael Payne, Lloyd Snook, Cena McGill. In November versus now, it's such a different landscape. Can you imagine these 3 councilors who went in November to City Hall saying, we are going to, in our term, make a huge impact in this community? For a guy who's my friend, and he's my friend. He is down the hall from me, literally in our building. I have tremendous respect for Lloyd Snook. He is my friend. I call Lloyd a friend. But a guy like Lloyd, who is not a spring chicken, this term on council goes a long way in determining his legacy in the community, as does his law practice. So 3 of these people went into City Hall and City Council in November, and now in June, we're just trying to keep the Band-Aid, on the wound here. We're just trying to do the best patchwork job possible and try to keep the community going positively in the right direction. I mean, the pressure, the expectations for $18,000, that's what they make, $20K if you're the mayor, is through the freaking roof. But that's what they signed up for. So I'm not feeling sorry for them. That's what they signed up for. And I will say this again. You have a budget for 2021 in the city of Charlottesville that's already strapped. You're not going to get help from hospitality, from tourism, from restaurants, from breweries, because the value prop is in the county for people to enjoy them outside as opposed to the tighter confines the city has to offer. That's further going to amplify a budget deficit for next year. And another thing I want to emphasize, Kelly Jackson makes this point online. Make the people that were arrested pay the $19,000 bill for damaging the city. Here's a really intriguing thing. Kelly, thank you for leaving that comment. And we'll get to Carol Thorpe's comment in a matter of moments as well. Here's the interesting thing about the $19,000 bill. Over $15,000 of that bill, over $15,000 of the $19K plus, is for a project that's earmarked in the fall that has not been spent yet. So when media outlets ask the city of Charlottesville, what is the damage or the bill for cleanup from Sunday, perhaps the city should not have put in that bill a project that's not going to happen till the fall. Because that looks like they're playing a smoke and mirrors chess game to try to manage perception and try to influence how the community sees protesters. And it backfired on them. And it backfired on them because of people like Rory Solzenberg who are demanding how the money is spent. Did you know in yesterday's press conference, and we've had Rory on this show. Rory's a planning commissioner. We've had Rory on this show. Did you know in yesterday's press conference, when Chief Brackney was doing her live stream to talk about the folks that she was arresting, and yesterday's press conference, and they do it over in York Place, where the Dumplings place is, where Cafe Cubano is, where Grit Coffee is. That's their studio. I believe Rory went by there and was trying to get their attention, was banging on the windows, banging on the glass during Chief Brackney's storefront, as I read on Twitter. James Watson says, Dr. Webb, congratulations. One big victory, one more to go. And this is what we're going to talk about with Jesse Rutherford. Let me get Jesse on the line, Judah. I'm going to reach out to Jesse. Jesse's big time, people. I enjoy his perspective, his outlook, a committed guy, a guy that wants what's best for Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Jesse certainly wants what's best for his beloved Nelson County. A lot of stuff I'm going to want to talk to with him. I'm getting the green light from our director to welcome you on the show here. Jesse, I'll get out of your way here. Introduce yourself to everybody, and then let's get topical with the news cycle. What's Jesse all about?
Hey, man. I'm Jesse Rutherford. I represent the Livingston-Schuyler District here in Nelson County. Jesse's all about, pre-COVID. That was a great time.
Amen, brother.
Going to the breweries, the wineries, of course, and the normal things that we used to be able to do. But I really appreciated your comments when you were talking about the city councilman. A lot of people went into November with expectations, and this was the atmosphere that they were given. And there's a lot of initiatives that people are struggling with. I mean, I have tons of initiatives that just went to a screeching halt and are basically said, wow, we got to take us. It would be irresponsible of me to be looking at these things in this world. So, hey, I'm all about doing great stuff, but looking at the world we're sitting in right now, it's exciting.
Okay, let's do this. Let's talk Nelson County. How is Nelson County your home? You love Nelson County. How's Nelson County managing COVID? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Not just the rosy colored glasses.
Sure, right. Nelson County has been a fiscally conservative government for a very long time. And so, as you're aware, as we talked last time about the personal property relief that we did of a couple $1 million, essentially, that was a no-brainer for us. We get into a nightmare like this, and we have that money stashed away for a reason, so we used it for there. The other good piece of this is, we're one of the only counties that increased funding to our school systems. We're one of the few, at least, that I'm aware of.
Good for you.
For this coming budget session, we've added $500 additional $1,000 so that our schools can be prepared for COVID-19 requirements and obviously just the atmosphere. Now, with that being said, we're not raising taxes either, and
Jesse, I'm moving to Nelson County, okay, man? I got my school system cutting the Spanish program. I got my city raising my real estate taxes, taxing me left and right, bleeding me dry, discouraging me to run a business. I'm moving to Nelson County.
Hey, man, come on over. We've got plenty of space for you. So, and I want to let's touch on the bad and the ugly. There's the bad is the mental health crisis in the middle of this, and I think that is a very under talked about situation. Though I'm not as acquainted with how counselors are operating right now, I do know of friends of mine who have really suffered. And, I know a lot of elderly who have really suffered not having access to their grandchildren or their children or, any of those folks. And that's terrible. That's heartbreaking for me as a person who loves to socialize, and knowing that there are those demographics that really need that socialization in their life, it hurts. And that's I definitely think there's going to be a long conversation about how we can approach that in a better manner. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the struggles of businesses right now. I mean, there are businesses that are going to go out, who will go nameless right now, that I know will not be coming back, and that's a tragedy. Nelson County is a small town, and if I'm not mistaken, I think we only have 3,000 working jobs. And when you start laying off, when all of a sudden you have 20, 30 breweries and wineries having to furlough or whatever, it gets tough, and 300-400 jobs, that's a huge impact. Rural counties will hit a depression before the city, because it doesn't take much for us. It's just 2 or 3 businesses go out, and there you go. Congratulations, the town just hit a depression. So, that I'm remiss if we don't see those things. And, one thing that I know that we have to look at in local government, especially in the rural context, is how can we support those businesses that are here? I mean, the local farmer. I mean, that's the most underestimated. When Charlottesville shut down, you have no idea how many local farmers in Nelson County all of a sudden had nowhere for their products to go. And we're not talking like a little bit. We're talking about tens of thousands of pounds of pork and beef and chicken and just produce.
Their livelihoods.
Tomatoes. Yeah, and these farmers are really dependent on that time frame between graduation and July. I mean, that's a huge place where a lot of produce comes out, and they don't have that right now. So having to orchestrate, the community coming together. I love buying local produce already, but making sure we're emphasizing that. Hey guys, we got some local farmers who have some great products, and we need to buy it. And I of course have had that conversation with many different members in the Charlottesville world saying, hey guys, you're not just impacting your city, you're impacting the urban ring and the rural context that kind of supplies that. And hey, I'm all about, we got to watch out for COVID, but man, how the other side of this is going to be tough.
Yeah, I love this guy. Nelson County is lucky to have Jesse in the district here. And I want to throw to you here. Do you use the word recession? Is Nelson County local government worried about that? Do we see that coming down the pipe, or is it the reserves so plentiful that you have the burn rate to make sure that does not happen?
I can say with confidence that Nelson County is in a great spot. It's not the 2021 context I'm really concerned about. It's 2022.
Interesting.
And we're one of the few that can say that. I can absolutely thank our county staff and thank the prior boards and their efforts of making sure this war chest exists. We could talk about, my philosophy is saying, wait, why do we have this big of a war chest?
Right.
But, in this particular context,
you love it.
It's just like, wow, what a great thing we're able to help our people. So I know for us, 2022 is going to be a big conversation, but areas like the urban ring of Albemarle and Charlottesville, they can't take that $10 million hit on revenue.
Right.
They can't take that personal property tax dip. New cars is a great revenue source for big urban areas. And, for us, it's just real estate, and real estate is a pretty easy thing to maintain. And for us, the icing on the cake is tourism and lodging. We do expect an impact there, but we're also prepared for it.
Great take right there. Jesse, what's the temperature with folks in Nelson County? We got a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, cautious optimism, maybe is a good terminology.
Sure.
What's the temperature in Nelson County?
All right. Well, I'm going to look at this from two screens because Nelson County has both the local farmer, good old boy like my family, we go back 400 years, and then you have that transient population, more of that Crozet, Wintergreen-esque demographic, which they're not opposing necessarily, but they're two different ones. And, there's two different reactions in our county. You have the farmers who are just like, I just want to sell my produce. And this is a nightmare. So they're in a tough spot. They have to get very creative. They're trying to get as many disaster relief loans as possible. And, a lot of them, that's a tough thing, because they don't own a computer. Right. They don't have internet. So, having to officiate that is very difficult. On the other side of things, you have a very cautious group who will stay in their home for 3 months straight. I don't know how they do it.
Right.
I'm going on, I don't know how long I feel like Monday is Saturday at this point. Yeah, I'm just sitting here redoing the same thing, working off of a computer and building houses and selling real estate. But, you have those two groups. You have the one that really wants to work, the one that is saying to himself, I am geographically socially distanced, and I've been that way for the 45 years of my life. And then you have another demographic that, they are way more conscious, and probably rightfully so. But, I went to Blue Mountain Brewery this past weekend. Nice. And let me tell you something. It was so great to see so much business there and seeing so many other restaurants and breweries and them getting creative in how they can socially distance and utilize the outside. And personally, I actually enjoyed eating outside more than I did inside when I was there. You could actually absorb the views. So I do think there's going to be a play into that culture change. I'm going to be excited for that. However, I think if the temperature on us is what is our feelings and culture going to be like when we're on the other side of this? I know for me, I generated new talents. I taught myself how to bake bread. So, I do still plan on going out to eat like I normally do. But, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, we can just stay home now. And, that's not how America runs. America runs on us going out
and doing stuff,
and doing things like, dude, I was supposed to be in 3 weddings this summer. I was supposed to be a best man in London and Cayman Islands and Miami. And dude, I'm just sitting.
Did they all get canceled?
All got canceled.
Wow.
And so, for me, that's my life.
Sure.
I love to travel, love to go around. And I just sat there one day. I was like, just imagine all of America did that at the same time.
It would be worse than COVID.
Yes.
Okay, and I catch a lot of heat for saying that. I'm a libertarian. Sure. I'm super pro-business. I just don't want the government in my freaking life. I just don't want the government in my life. Get your hand out of my pocket, government. That's how I feel.
Oh, right there with you.
Can we talk about if everything just shut down, the ramifications would be much worse. I mean, and you mentioned mental health. We mentioned physicality, people not being in the same shape they're supposed to be. It's certainly impacting me.
I'm still sorry.
Suicides are higher.
Right. It's huge. Again, you could talk about family life too. I mean, people's, you're seeing scenarios, and I've heard from many different departments on, you have abusive households, and now the husband's there all the time, and there's no escape for the wife and the kids or whatever that might be, and how our law enforcement have to be conscious of COVID, but also policing things of that nature. If you shut the world down like this again, like this fall, I just can't even imagine. I mean, I know my construction company, we're already running into issues with the supply chain. Like, I am waiting 30 days for specific appliances. That's scary. It's supposed to be a week or two,
right.
Now you're starting to see timber prices going way up because everybody's doing their DIY projects, and also Asia stopped importing a lot of our hardwoods. So you're starting to see major impacts on those products that are major revenue generators for areas. I know construction hasn't really slowed down much, but we also haven't gotten hit big enough on the supply chain. And I do say that if we go through round 2, and I know you were mentioning earlier about Florida and Texas, if they're going to do this around 2, I just can't imagine. You can't another PPP, another disaster relief loan of $150K. You can only do that but so many times. Right. The restaurant industries, this is tough. They will operate on 1% and 2% margins. That tomato better make 10 cents because that tomato is kind of what's going to pay the overhead on this rent for the building. And to do that again for another 2-3 months, dude, I don't even know.
Smart guy here. Let me throw this to you here because I'm legitimately worried about this. I love talking to this guy. So it seems to me you and I both like a cold drink, and you and I both like some good food. And it seems to me that the farm to table fine dining movement is losing a tremendous amount of momentum. And it seems to me that farm to table is not potentially going to survive this COVID situation. That concerns me with some of the citizens in your district here and in your area.
It's huge. It's huge. You have to understand. I think one industry that's the most persecuted is easily the farmer. The farmer is the guy who literally lives on a line of credit until he sells everything, and then he's basically rich for a week, maybe, assuming crops are right, assuming the prices are right and commodities are right, and then it repeats himself. And then you have this, and then all of a sudden, imagine, I think another thing you don't talk about enough is, grain farmers, and around in this area. They feed Tyson. They take care of all the chickens in the valley. They go out to Newport for exports, and all of a sudden you got those farmers who are already struggling, who their family members aren't going back into the industry, who want to maintain their family legacy and that 400-year-old farm that they've had forever to preserve that culture. And then this happens. It's already hard enough, and for the farmer out here, you have to understand, everything's against them. The government, people, because they have specific stringents and requirements in their minds, disease, bugs, animals, everything. And now it's COVID, diseases of other people in this way. And, the disruption in the food supply, that's going to be real. I've heard of the farmer who had to shoot 100 pigs because he's like, I can't sell them. And, I can't afford to feed them, and that's just devastating.
That's devastating.
It's devastating, and you wish we could butcher them all up and sell pork chops, but you just also, restaurants aren't buying
who's going to buy them? Who's going to buy them? This guy's dropping knowledge bombs left and right here. Here's a tough question for you. We have the city in a serious budget crunch. Sure. We have Albemarle County potentially in an even worse budget crunch. Albemarle County inexplicably turns its back on a Tiger Fuel operation in Keswick, where they were going to create $100K in new revenue and 24 new jobs, but 3 members of a 6-member board of supervisors said, oh, no. We're not going to allow a generational business to expand their operation here despite a budget shortfall. And Malik. I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, so here's the question I have for you. What can an Albemarle County and a city of Charlottesville learn from a Nelson County?
Right.
That's crazy to say that, right?
It is a crazy thing in that realm. One thing that you really run into, and Keith Smith, and he could tell you all day about NIMBYs and cavers, in the sense of, those demographics that don't really want that there. And it's always ironic when it's super affluent groups of people.
Right, it always is. Always is.
It's a super affluent demographic that's dictating how this local populace should live and operate their life, even though it's like, actually the people who are getting the jobs are the ones who need jobs. Right. So you're when you look at things of that nature, for me in Nelson County, it's really great because if somebody complains, I can sit down and have a beer with them at any brewery and have a great discussion. Obviously that benefit doesn't exist because there's so many of you. However, people have to actually start understanding the repercussions of chasing a business away. Nelson County is the exact example of that. We have, for decades, we've said, we're just going to be a tourist and hospitality industry. Okay, got it. Guess what? That long term, that's not the best industry in the world. It's a great industry. I'm grateful to have it in my county. However, it's not that backbone industry that's going to be there for 100 years and doesn't just flourish 3 months out of the year, right? 3 to 6 months out of the year. People have to start understanding that. The most dangerous government people you could have is an apathetic one. And I certainly can say that about every jurisdiction that exists, from federal government to state government to local government. And people just need to stop being apathetic, and actually start understanding what these repercussions mean. Actually understanding why 2 cents increase on your real estate taxes is actually a big deal. And actually asking questions about that $5 million capital improvement and how that's going to impact you, not just now, but for 30 years. It's things of that nature, getting people riled up and getting people conscious and participating. Everybody likes to participate on social media and just do a quick blip, when in reality, what's required is a bunch of people who are dedicated and actually caring. Usually you don't care until you're personally injured, so to speak. Whether that was hypothetically or you lost your job or whatever that may be. Well, guess what? That's too late. When you're operating after the effect, then yeah, sure, that's great. You need to do that. However, you also should be proactive in asking yourself what this could mean. So, and I could go all day about affordable housing and the oxymorons that I had to deal in this particular region where, I could go all day on that one.
This guy's good. Let's cut that into a highlight clip and play that for Monday's show. That answer was good, Judah. Let's play that on Monday's show. Throw a couple more questions to you, and somebody get Jesse on the ballot for the city of Charlottesville or Albemarle County, because I think this guy's got some
I like
votes.
Nelson. It's really nice.
Someone get him on Albemarle County, please. All right, let me throw this to you here. We're seeing a huge sprint away from suburban environments, from urban environments to suburban environments. And that's because people are scared to live on top of each other in these densely populated areas because of this pandemic and this virus here. Is this going to impact Nelson?
It's going to be interesting. You've seen a big dry up in inventory. I'm sure Keith has told you that.
You guys have no inventory either?
It's dropping out of the yin yang. I mean, in terms of foreclosures, which is, that's your investors market, where you're taking unmarketable products, houses, and then making them marketable. I'm one of those guys. Oh man, I can't buy nothing. I mean, I actually am now having to build houses for myself in terms of property to turn into rental properties.
Interesting.
Which is, hey, that's great. But also it's interesting to see that happen when you made the statement about now's the time to list your house. That's a fact. If you're not looking at yourself and knowing what's happening right now, I mean, in Nelson right now, we have fiber internet. You can buy that $150,000 house and run your software company from it. You can get up to a gigabyte of speed, which is faster than the city, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Thank you, Central Virginia Electric Company.
That's amazing. That's a great value proposition.
It is. It really is. Now, I suspect there'll be a huge urban move into rural areas like Nelson. There are some board members who do. I personally do not, just because of the geographical aspect of it.
What do you mean by that?
what I mean by that is you got to be ready to live in the country. You got to be ready to throw your trash in the dumpster that's 4 miles away and drive 15 minutes to go to the food line. And, you know, some of these folks are ready for that. A lot of those demographics more often than not go to Afton, where they're 20 minutes away from Waynesboro, 30 minutes from Charlottesville. And a lot of those retail areas are in that 151 corridor. But in terms of your Shipman, Elma, I do think there'll be some minor movement there from the urban context. I don't know. I more or less see more suburban people moving to Nelson, if that makes sense.
Why so?
It's more comfortable to them. I mean, because they're familiar with it.
Got it.
It's a geography that they already know. They understand, how to live in the country. And they also know that we have fiber internet coming. And my district is full of it. So please move to the East District in Livingston, Schuyler. I'd love to have all of you. So.
I love this guy. All right, let me throw this to you. We've been covering this Republican convention where a bunch of old white dudes in ties and button-down shirts were smoking stogies and drinking bourbon in a back room.
They don't do that.
And essentially,
Bible Belt.
they ripped Denver Riggleman out of this. I'm a huge Riggleman fan. You know I'm a huge Riggleman fan. I'll cut to the nitty-gritty and then get out of your way because you're a hell of a lot smarter than I am on this.
Sure.
Denver officiates a same-sex marriage.
Right.
The party, a lot of it revolts because of it. Denver, and I'm going to straight up say it, an approachable guy, a committed guy, a guy willing to put in the work. And I'm saying this, you're not saying this, so you're not catching heat. I'm going to say this. Bob Good scares the hell out of me. Scares the hell out of me. Your thoughts on how all that played out?
All right. Well, that's a lot. I would easily say that's been a 1.5 year campaign that I've been part of. When it comes to challenging a candidate who is in office in your own party, that method should exist. I don't think there's anybody who disagrees that the method should exist. What happens is then when you start seeing members of that committee being paid by the candidate,
that's so sketchy.
To vote to get, and you're sitting there, and now I'm not saying it's illegal. It's not. It's not. It's a corporation. The state has nothing much to do with the Republican Party when it comes to how they operate their business, because it is a business, and that's a reality we all have to say. And everybody listening needs to hear that, because when you get upset who your candidate is, if you're not doing this part, then don't get upset with who's in November. So just live with that, okay? And don't get angry at me, and don't vandalize things, because I fought this war for 1.5 years. When you're watching committee members getting paid off and doing stuff of that nature, and then you're watching, them use a method which is known as tactical democracy, a convention, not on an open seat. Like if it was an open seat, that's for me,
different.
that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different. I love conventions. I'll come out and say that in a way. I've also never operated in a convention where there is an incumbent being challenged.
Right.
So again, tactical democracy. So you get into this thing where you have to have a select group of people who apply at a specific time to go to a specific place. Wait, back up. They apply, they then turn it in by a specific time to then get approved or disapproved. And then if you're disapproved, you have to appeal. And then hopefully maybe you'll be qualified to be a voter in the convention, a few months later. And then, you run into this whole scenario of you have to go to a specific place at a specific time on a specific date. There's no absentee voting. There's no nothing else. You just got to go there. And you run into just such kind of it was a nightmare. I have other words I could use, but not on air. But you get into that scenario and you're ousting an incumbent Republican. I love Denver. Denver is one of my best friends and inspired me to run for office. That small government mentality, and freedom loving. That's just what I live for. That's how life should be and how government should operate. But you just run into small demographics. I think there was 3,500 delegates. So divide that number by 700,000. And then that's how many vote. Oh, it wasn't even 3,500 that voted. It was more like 2,600. So then divide that by 700,000 people and see how much each person was worth per voter.
He's 2,600 people determine who's on the ticket for the Republicans to go against Dr. Webb for the 5th district in a very important open seat.
Right after they had done all that paperwork and got qualified, and they had to know about it. I mean, in reality, the average person doesn't even know what a convention is.
Right.
The only people who know what a convention is the internal circle people. I'm one of those people. I obviously know what it is, but I also pay a lot of attention to it. But guess what? Unless I go knock on my neighbor's door or go knock on someone else's door, they're not going to know about it. So you just kind of run into that level of, non-participatory kind of thing. You're just having that small subgroup of a subgroup choosing who that person will be.
Do you think Denver would be on the ticket now had he not officiated that wedding?
I don't know. I love Denver. He's got this. He really challenged the establishment at that time. He really pushed against the norm, and. Do I think he would still be challenged? I honestly, I don't know. I think he probably still would have been challenged. That's neither here nor there.
Do you tell him to run as a friend? Are you saying, look, dude, third party, you got a lot of popularity, run? Or is it no way, Jose?
I'm going to let Denver gets to decide that on his own.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm going to let him decide that on his own. And, as a member of the Republican Party, of course I have to look at the Republican ticket. And, I think the one thing that we have got to do, and this is not just as Republicans or Democrats or independents or libertarians or whoever you are, is, there's definitely some moments where a candidate does something or has a surrogate that says something painfully wrong. And I think one thing we should not stop doing is calling out those bad things. A great example, when you have a surrogate that's vouching racism and just vomiting that everywhere. Sure, I don't let the candidate be married to the surrogate, but I do absolutely expect the candidate to speak out against that and vocalize that. And that needs to happen. And I'm saying that to you, Bob Good.
Yeah, I knew you were. I didn't think you would take it that far. You just took it that far. I thought you were saying that to Bob Good.
Right. So I guess everybody heard me on that one. But that's how we have to operate. I mean, I have Republicans criticize me on my votes all the time, and that's appropriate. It's how this works.
That's the game.
And people in Denver needs to be criticizing some of his votes. I don't disagree with that. I've never had a candidate that always voted 100% of the time with me, and I don't expect that. I do, however, recognize that, there is a right and wrong way of doing things, and then paying committee members off to make sure that you get a specific method so that you can get your guy voted in is wrong. And that's criminal, and it's crony. And, I recognize it's legal. I recognize the Republican Party plan says you can do that. Doesn't make it right.
Yeah. It's everything that leaves a bitter taste in people's mouths about politics. That right there is it in like a nutshell. All right, here's the toughest question you're literally going to get here. We've had Dr. Webb on this show.
Sure.
And Dr. Webb is a very electable guy. I mean, this guy is a lawyer. He's a doctor. He's approachable. He's kind. He's well-spoken. He has, I think, an inherent market advantage wearing that white doctor jacket and going on the live stream and talking about COVID-19 in very medical, straightforward fashion. He's playing that extremely intelligently and well. Sure. I'm going to get out of your way here. We got a gerrymandered district. The tea leaves would say that it's going to go Republican and good. But we also have a candidate in Good who is extremely evangelical. And then we have a candidate in Dr. Webb who's very electable. What are your thoughts on how this plays out?
Okay. Looking at the context of the 5th District, you have some interesting things that happen in the 5th District. We all remember Corey Stewart. And what Corey Stewart had done to Republicans and made, people like me be like, holy cow, I really hate being a Republican. This really sucks. But I also recognize I can't complain when I'm not participating and trying to change that. The 5th District went for Corey Stewart, which was just absolutely baffling to me. Now, that wasn't that exciting of a year for anybody. I do think that's going to be different in November. But again, dependent on COVID-19. Nobody knows in reality what turnout's going to be. We do know they're super low. I mean, you guys saw that in city council, right? Super low turnout.
Yeah.
We've seen it in every other primary that's happened in the towns. We've seen it happen in the city. I mean, Lynchburg, it was a really low turnout and have really great friends there. But when we were talking about those two factions, Mr. Webb is definitely a nice guy. He's very eloquent. He carries himself well, and he's one of those people that you could probably have a beer with and still disagree with him, and life is going to go on.
Yeah. Well said.
I'm 100% certain that I will disagree with him on 70% of things. But I think one thing that you can understand is he's a lot more approachable. Bob obviously carries those conservative values that are near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. Especially Nelson County South and in North to some degree. I think where you're going to see a struggle that I would imagine is going to be in that suburban area. You're going to have those guys and your young demographics. Come on, young people, you guys got to actually start participating in these things.
Vote.
Vote and actually participate. Protests, I guess, are cool, but also, one thing, and this is really important for folks to hear. I ran for office when I was 22 years old because I was mad at the incumbent. Because I realized that just sending emails and phone calls really doesn't do much. It makes you feel better for about a moment, and then the same thing keeps happening. No, actually, go do something radical and run for office. Actually, go do something radical and campaign. Knock door to door. Make phone calls. Send letters. Register people to vote. Join community groups. Get inspired. There's a lot of young folks who are conservative-minded, who are fiscal conservatives, who want that freedom. There's a lot of people in the more liberal progressive contingent that, believe it or not, we're overlapping a whole lot of stuff. And in reality, I believe everybody just wants a little bit more economic freedom and to be seen equal before the law, and that ties both those things together. And I believe in both those things. So look at your candidates, participate in those candidates. And when you're looking at these two factions, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. We all remember Tom Perriello. Tom Perriello he changed it up. He also ran when Obama was
right. He
running.
had a huge edge with Barack Obama.
He did. Now you have an interesting thing where Virginia has a blue wave happening. However, you're also watching, Trump run, and that there's a Trump effect. You can't deny that. Tom Garrett slaughtered on the Trump effect, and I love, that was an interesting thing to see. He didn't just win; he slaughtered. It was massive against, Jane Dittmar?
Yeah.
Former
border supervisor.
Correct, and now I'm wrong. So, you kind of run into those contexts, and, I still believe it leans R. I would be very remiss if I didn't think it did.
So if I'm betting you a 12-pack or a rack of full Nelsons, and I love the full Nelsons, baby. And if I'm going to the hippie hole and I'm tubing the Ty River with my buddy Shannon, I'm taking a right. I'm going down the bridge. I'm taking right at the post office. I'm going when the road goes to dirt. You're saying you're taking Bob Good gets the W. Are we going to do a bet?
I'm fine with the bet, man. I don't do 6-packs. I actually have a kegerator. So you
look at the dude.
So I'm just saying, I'm conscientious of the environment, so I stopped drinking out of glass bottles, and I just,
What's in the kegerator?
It's in the kegerator.
Yeah.
Let me see. So we currently have, there's a Truly in there, but I guess that's.
How about in the, those are pony kegs, right?
Yeah, those are Sixels.
What's in the pony kegs?
So in those, we got South Street, and I believe we also have a Devil's Backbone. We have a Devil's Backbone Bright Beer. So that's a nice summer, refreshing beer. When you're quarantined, you got to have a bar somewhere. That's all I'm saying.
Dude, you killed this interview.
Come on by.
I was planning 15 minutes. We went 36. You are amazing on camera. I'm going to reach out to you again, if that's okay with you.
My mother said the same thing.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank
Jesse,
you. Appreciate it. And,
you crushed it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I try.
You have a good one, dude.
But.
All right.
See ya.
Jesse, one of the good guys right there. I really, really love his perspective and his take. And you got that sizzle reel that we can play for tomorrow or Monday, Judah? Do you want to work tomorrow on Saturday and come in and do a show, or do you want a day off?
I'm definitely taking a day off.
All right, Judah wants a day off. I would do a show tomorrow if you said we can come in to work. All right, you can have a day off on Saturday. Fine. You can have a day off on Saturday. Fine. Dr. Webb. Hey, Dr. Webb's watching. Dr. Webb, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Webb. Dr. Webb, I think I just bet a 12-pack on you getting the W Cameron over Bob Good. So Jesse, Dr. Webb is watching the show now. He says, let's grab a drink. That's pretty cool. Jeremy Hagg says this, definitely if I were to move back to Virginia, I would want to live in a county where people like Mr. Rutherford represent. Well, Jeremy, I'll read this again to you. I'll read this again to Jesse. Jesse says this, or Jeremy says this to Jesse. Jeremy Hagg, if I were to move back to Virginia, I would want to live in a county where people like Mr. Rutherford represent our county. He also says, sounds like Nelson County has it right. What's wrong with the people that are in power in Charlottesville and Albemarle County? Jeremy, I ask that question all the time. Dr. Webb against Bob Good in a race of epic proportions. I got 12 ounce full Nelsons against Jesse's beer of choice. That Dr. Webb gets that dubs. We'll cover that closely on today's program. A couple other things I want to get out of the notebook. Wow, we got a lot of comments coming in here. James Watson says, congratulations, Dr. Webb, on the victory. James Watson, thank you for watching. Jesse says, Dr. Webb, I am down anytime you want. I love the power of social media used for the good. Dr. Webb, Jesse's down for a cold beverage. Let's make that happen. Andy Wilfong says, are you streaming this on YouTube as well? Yes, we are. We're not streaming this on YouTube? We archive it on YouTube? Is that what we do, Judah?
Yes, we are.
Andy, we archive it on YouTube, so you can see the link. Carol Thorpe says, ooh, this is a good comment from Carol Thorpe. This is about the people arrested for the vandalism they did on Sunday. Carol Thorpe says this, Jerry, charges mean very little without the aggressive prosecution to back them up. The ball will soon be in Joe Plantinia's hands. He's the city's attorney, and the court system's hands to deliver meaningful punishments which will send the message these acts are illegal and wrong. $25 fines and suspended jail sentences will not get it done. Interestingly, what's happening now, you have two factions that are showing, that are galvanizing and gaining momentum. One faction is actually going to Charlottesville's prosecuting attorney and demanding that he drops all the charges. And the other faction is contacting Charlottesville's Commonwealth's attorney and demanding that he trumps up the charges or makes them a little stiffer. So the first mistake by the protesters, undoubtedly the vandalizing of public property. It's changed the news cycle, and it's changed the outlook, and it's changed with how much the community sees and what the protesters are doing. Doesn't mean they can't recover, and I'm sure another protest happens this weekend. Doesn't mean they can't recover, but when the police chief goes on record in very vocal fashion and pretty much drops an iron fist, that's going to get some people listening and talking. I want to get to Anwar Allen's sound here in a minute. He's an entrepreneur in our community. He joined us on the show yesterday. He's got a fabulous family business that he runs where he makes shortbreads and he distributes them up and down the East Coast from packaging that bears his family's name. So it's a phenomenal story. So we'll get to Anwar in a matter of moments, Judah. Some other comments coming in. This one from Gary Grant. He says, I would like to know the 12 other Facebook pages. So, Gary, just check out any of the I Love CVille pages. So you're watching right now, Gary, on I Love CVille. The show's airing on I Love CVille Food, on my personal page. It's airing on the I Love CVille group, across the Scoutology pages. What we try to do is we put positive content on 12 Facebook pages, and each of the communities engages with the content on that page. And those micro impacts create a macro impact where we now have a show that has a larger reach than NBC 29. I'm going to cut to the chase right there. Richard Averett says this. Dr. Webb, you're going to like this. He says, Dr. Webb for the win. Richard Averett, the entrepreneur who's involved in software and restaurants, a fabulous Nelson Countyan. He says, Dr. Webb for the win. We got Tim Ryan, who's watching in Lovingston, who's a fan of Jesse. And Tim says, I'm voting for Dr. Webb, and I love that Jesse Rutherford guy. This is from Tim in Nelson County. I'm going to catch some heat for this. I will catch heat for this. I'm going to straight up say it. I think because of the collision of the following factors, the gap between Dr. Webb and Bob Good is very narrow. Historically, a gerrymandered district goes Republican, Perriello says, not so fast, my friends, but Perriello had Barack Obama in his corner. So I think that is more of an anomaly than the norm. So you can strike Perriello because he had a phenomenon in Barack Obama in his corner. Dr. Webb does not have Barack Obama in his corner right now. So I take the Perriello W out and call it more of an anomaly than the standard. That being said, you have an incredibly evangelical person. You have undoubtedly the Trump effect that's happening now, and that's probably not going to work in Bob's favor. And then cut to the chase, Dr. Webb's the man. Dude looks like Superman. He's a lawyer, he's a doctor. He's a cool dude. He's approachable. He's knowledgeable. I mean, am I going to go ahead and say that he gets the... If I was a betting man, I would say it would be like, and I am a betting man, I would say, I'm not going to call it a toss-up or a pick-em. It's not a toss-up or a pick-em. But I would say it's a hell of a lot closer than we think. Maybe like less than 2-1. Good's favor, less than 2-1. We'll see what happens. I want to hear from Anwar Allen here. Kelly Lewis says, such a great show today. Thank you. Kelly Lewis, thank you. I love when you watch the show, Kelly. Thank you for sharing the show as well. Chris is watching in Richmond and said, Jerry, we moved from Nelson County to Richmond from work. We miss Nelson County every day. Please tell Jesse he's doing a good job with our old home. Go Nelson County Governors. Good comment right there. Anwar Allen sound, you have that ready to go? So I asked Anwar Allen, what is Charlottesville's identity? What is the identity of Charlottesville? Don't you feel like we are searching for an identity? We've been searching for an identity in this home of ours since August 12, 2017. We have been searching for identity since August 12, 2017, and that identity must be a close in the wealth gap. That identity must be have a foundation in much better efforts done with bridging social justice and creating social justice, closing the wealth gap, and creating opportunity for people of every different skin color. Okay? Until we start addressing those very real and serious topics and having progress there, we're still going to continue to struggle to find what is Charlottesville's brand identity. I asked Anwar Allen yesterday, what is Charlottesville's brand identity? And his message and his answer, dudes, it got me thinking. Judah, let's play that sound in 3, 2, and 1. You mentioned that you felt Charlottesville's a great place to launch a business. How about Charlottesville raising a family? What are your thoughts on just Charlottesville? What are your thoughts on Charlottesville and the identity we're searching for, Anwar? Don't you feel like this town is searching for an identity now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I was just thinking about the other day, I don't know who I was talking to. I have a couple friends that are leaders, they're church leaders, they're pastors, and other friends that run businesses. And one thing that we've always, a lot of people have thought is Charlottesville has had an identity of like, it's UVA, Thomas Jefferson. And I've had to parse that out myself because I went to UVA and I loved the school. But then, my wife, she'd say like, my wife is a trip. She'd be the only, she was like the one white girl in all the African American studies classes, you know what I'm saying? And she'd be like, the school was built on slaves and and there's slave markers at certain parts where they excavated and said, okay, like let's memorialize this, let's do it justice. Or after many years, Monticello started to open up the discussion. Okay, well, Thomas Jefferson did have a slave who he had an intimate relationship with. And if you go there now, they'll take you on the tour where there was like a back room. It was a secret room where only he could, so she could sleep in the house and he had access to that house and she had access to kind of walk back and forth when they didn't have visitors over. So it was a part of, and so the whole Thomas Jefferson thing is a part of who UVA is or who Charlottesville is. And if you look at the demographics of who lives here in Charlottesville, there's a lot of people that are descendants of Thomas Jefferson, right? That still live in the area. Whites and blacks. There's some documentary out there where there's like hundreds of people that are related to Thomas Jefferson, white and black. They share the same DNA, And so Charlottesville, I think we've done a good job of grappling with the issue. I think it's not just the UVA's history. I think it's a church history thing too. There's tons of churches here. Thomas Jefferson and Peter Jefferson, his father, helped fund churches built out in Earlysville. You know what I'm saying? So it's also just the discourse of, okay, like what were we complicit with? What were we complacent on? And how do we make it right? It's not, it's not a question of, people need to pay up for somebody else's past. It's more like, okay, everybody is a part of the conversation. Because if we go back far enough, you could even see back in Africa where Africans were enslaving Africans and Muslims were enslaving. You know what I'm saying? The word Slav comes from a derivative of their own word for a white slave. You know what I'm saying? So it's such a big, it's bigger than Charlottesville, but Charlottesville handles it in such a unique way to where there's compassion. I think there's compassion for everybody that's involved in the story. And we're at least listening to what people are saying. We're at least bridging the gap for relationships so that people at least feel like there's a voice. Like 2 years ago, you had a panel of different pastors who were saying, look, the lifeblood of, back in the day, the social scene was the church. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes the evangelical white church didn't step up to the plate and say, look, this is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Or we won't be a part of this. Well, a couple years ago, you had white pastors and black pastors saying, look, there's no difference. We serve the same purpose of bringing healing and restoration to our community. Let's do this together. And so they said, look, we're sorry on behalf of our, constituents from before, and let's make it better. And that's all they can do. I think you build relationships, you make it better. And Charlottesville does a good job. I think Charlottesville does a good job of having those tough conversations.
Love Anwar Allen. Loved yesterday's show. Loved the resilience, the vision, the entrepreneurial tenacity. I love the chutzpah, the hustle. Love Anwar Allen and that family and what they're doing from a small business standpoint and growing it. I love that. And one of the things I think we need to emphasize, and I talk about this on the show often, I'm a champion for small businesses. I own 4 of them myself that are active. And I undoubtedly feel that small businesses are the backbone of just about any community out there because they're the ones that are creating the jobs and helping drive funding for the municipalities to keep the municipalities heading in the right direction. I'm going to say this again. If we are going to close the wealth gap and if we are going to make serious progress when it comes to social justice and creating equality in America between white, black, brown, Puerto Rican, Haitian, whatever it may be, we have to do a much better job of creating the foundation for future entrepreneurs and future business owners in our African American and minority communities. We have to. The businesses are the creators of generational wealth, just like a home purchase. And if we can champion and create a foundation for creating and launching small businesses in our minority communities, that is going to build generational wealth and help close the wealth gap. And when the wealth gap gets closed, when the health gap starts closing down, then we will start seeing social and civil unrest pump the brakes a little bit. Of course we have social and civil unrest, guys. We have a ginormous wealth gap. We have folks on Wall Street getting rich while Main Street gets poor. We have a pandemic that undoubtedly is impacting folks that are black and brown much greater than folks that are white. The numbers justify that. So going into COVID-19, we already had major issues with race and equality and justice and wealth. COVID, just like it has with restaurants, with real estate, just like it has with realtors, with breweries, with wineries, just like it has with municipalities, COVID has amplified and magnified that gap and that social and civil unrest. We have to. And that's one of the things I got excited about of Yolanda Harrell and the New Hill Development Corporation. The New Hill Development Corporation is creating educational infrastructure and foundation for the community in Vinegar Hill, in Star Hill, and in Fifeville. Until we prioritize or emphasize or improve the foundation of creating and launching businesses in our underserved communities and demographics, until we do a better job of doing that, we are not going to make the progress we need to make. That's a good way to close. There is something about getting up out of your bed, putting your pants and clothes on, going to work, having other people count and depend on you, having a hell of a lot of pressure on your shoulders, but doing your job, having the team on your staff realize that the business is going in the right way and that they're in a good spot for their future and their families. There is a sense of accomplishment that goes with that. And that sense of accomplishment, when you start doing it back to back to back, year after year after year. I've been doing this for 12 years of having to wake up every day, put on my pants, get dressed, and go to a building and figure out a way how to earn money. I've been doing this for 12 years. And when you do it and you have success 12 years in a row, you get this feeling of accomplishment that you can start doing other things. And I want that feeling of accomplishment, of confidence, of, look, I figured out how to run this. I want others to feel that because that's going to create generational opportunities for people that need it. COVID is changing everything and moving everything, making everything move a lot faster. Everything is being magnified and everything is moving a lot faster. And it's basic. COVID knows no race. It doesn't know how many commas you have in your bank account, and it doesn't know if you tan when you go outside or not. It doesn't care. It's very Darwinistic. It's like, I'm here, survive, figure it out. This is the I Love CVille Show. Thank you, Jesse, for joining us on the program. I love you guys. I love connecting through this platform. We try to keep it local. We bring macro trends to a micro level. And we do it through a cautious, positive lens. I'm a cautious optimist. I'm a libertarian who's a cautious optimist. You guys have a good weekend. Take care. Good show. I really liked Jesse. I think Jesse has like really good takes. Don't you think?
Well considered.
Yeah, approachable, like thought out.